I don't want to say a breakout performance for him. He's obviously been a very good player for a long time.
Yeah, ninth at London Internationals last year, or a couple years ago now.
Yeah, but I mean, he'd been saying that there had been some discussion. Unfortunately, we haven't got the player names actually inverted there.
Okay.
They decided to perform the old switcheroo on us.
They played escape rope on themselves.
Basically, they Guzman into each other's seats. But the deck we see, Igor, who's going first, he's going to be playing this Drampa and Garbodor archetype that I know a lot of him and his friends have been talking about. Him, Jimmy Pendarvis, Azul, they've all been talking about it and keep on playing it. Yet to see quite what Alex is pulling out, but
yeah, well,
he's a fan of the fighting decks.
Yeah, when 3 people came out and top 8'd Dallas with this Drampa Garbodor deck, kind of made a statement like, yeah, this deck's pretty good against the meta right now.
Yeah, I mean, no complaints at all. We do see a lot of cards coming down there from Igor, basically showing off his turn all in one go. So we see him Ultra Ball, as you see next to the prizes there. Tapu Lele, then Bridget, then the cards he's grabbing with the Bridget there. So
yeah, if 3 Trubbish.
If you wonder why he played 5 cards off an Ultra Ball, that's why. Nice and concise there.
All right, and Alex, what he's actually playing is a deck that everyone from 6 prizes has been playing. It's the Glaceon Barbacle deck.
Oh.
Now, I don't know if I'm saying Barbacle right, but that's how I'm going to say it for this tournament.
Until proven otherwise. No, you were talking to me about this deck earlier.
Yeah,
and, it sounds nasty.
Yeah, if you have a Stadium in play, your opponent cannot attach special energy cards from their hand to their Pokemon.
Ooh.
And then Glaceon, with its ability to shut off your opponent's Pokemon GX and EX abilities, it's really just this hard lock deck that you're trying to complete. And we actually see Alex shortcutting through a lot too. Eevee off the Ultra Ball, energy evolution from the Eevee, get the Glaceon GX, Floatstone on the active Rangaroo, and then Cynthia for a brand new hand of 6.
Yeah, I mean, these players know exactly how to play the game. It does look a little bit, I'd say, disconcerting to see how quickly they play it sometimes, but, you know, there's no point hanging around. Your opponent knows what's going on. So here comes his new hand of 6.
Yeah, especially since these are some of the top players in the game. Igor's probably, I think, me personally, I put him in my top 5 of all time.
Just don't post your top 5 on Twitter, then there's a huge debate. You'll be getting DMs and all that good stuff.
Maybe I should then, because I don't get any DMs.
You just want the interaction?
Yeah, I feel lonely sometimes.
Sometimes I post inflammatory tweets just to get likes.
And there we see the second Eevee come off there, and he passes the turn, opting not to retreat into the Glaceon because he doesn't want it to take a lot of damage from this Drampa. Meanwhile, Igor, or Alex as it's known, played an N for his turn, and he's really looking to get a couple more cards, get set up. Garbotoxin is something that could be useful in this match. It'd allow him to get around Barbacle and different things like that.
Yep, I mean, Garbotoxin is something he's going to need, and need it early. It's definitely on the right path, I think, to get there. But it's going to help. You know, that's what you need, I think, and probably the reason a lot of players are stuck with it is because Garbotoxin is still a fantastic ability, especially why people are struggling to find room to play those field blowers.
Yeah, exactly. People have been cutting field blowers a lot from what I've seen, at least in their decks. And I think we saw a Big Wheel GX come down from Igor. Shuffle your hand into your deck, draw 10 cards. Usually the type of effect to where it's more like just forces your opponent to end.
Yeah, you basically limit your opponent's ability to play any other supporter for that turn.
And yeah, there we see the Ultra Ball for the Tapu Lele grabbing the N. And there's the Barnacle? Or not actually quite sure on the card name.
Yeah, the pronunciation, definitely up for discussion. I like how Igor just leaves his deck.
Doesn't even draw the 10 cards.
Why would I bother when I know you can Big Wheel? Just seems a little bit silly to do that, but, you know, overall, the right decision and respectful to your opponent as well. Alex still has the Oranguru in the active, so maybe wanting to get it out this turn and start getting some attacks down with Glaceon.
Oh, he actually chose not to bench it. And there we see the brand new hand thanks to N. He
Another,
does have the double colorless, but remember, double colorless is kind of a card that this Drampa GX preys on.
oh, it loves it. Yeah, it loves being able to knock those off. It's one of its favorites, I think, being able to remove a special energy from play that easily. And these decks, Glaceon relies on it.
Yeah.
And even though you can keep it in the active, it doesn't really matter when, it's just going to lose its energy.
I think that's probably Glaceon's biggest weakness right now, is relying on double colorless energy to get those attacks consistently.
Yeah, well, so many decks have been putting themselves together to basically rule out the use of the double colorless energy, to say, hey, no, like, we don't want you. I mean, special energy in general, but double colorless, I think in particular, is the one that people are preying on, just because it's so good when it comes to getting rid of strong energies and stuff.
Yeah. All right, there's the rough seas coming down, and that is pretty rough for Igor right there.
Yep, it's not what he wanted. I think he wanted to keep that stadium of his in play, and of course the rough seas is required to use the ability we've been talking about that shuts off the use of special energy.
But being able to mitigate this like 20 damage, 50 damage coming from Drampa into just 20?
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely much nicer. Being able to keep yourself a little bit healthier each turn. Really smart play. I don't think Alex is too nervous right now. I mean, we do see a Garbodor ready to go on the bench, but it's not the one he's super scared of.
Yeah, and there is the GX attack coming. Get down. Polar Spear GX dealing 150 to the Drampa. I believe it had 30 on it.
Yes, it did. Yeah. It picked up damage earlier, so wasn't really any way around that. Of course, it's one use though, but he did get rid of the big GX that was causing the problems. He now has to deal with another one, which I think, again, does Igor stick with being able to just hit with consistent righteous edges and keep the double colorless off and hope Alex doesn't have a way to special charge back in? Or does he start going for it, try and get some Berserk into play a little bit later, and try and get knockouts a little bit quicker?
Well, here's the good part. So Alex got that Garbodor down, and
we are struggling a little bit with the technology. Well,
but yeah. So what I was saying is he got the Garbodor down, and he actually got the N as well, to where now he ends Igor. Or Igor ends Alex, and if he could actually get the float stone, he can actually take the knockout as well. Yeah, we apologize for these difficulties. Oh, and it looks like it's back, and we've missed a little bit of happenings here. I'm now joined by Emily Engel. And it looks like Alex was able to just get a regular water energy to his Glaceon and not be able to attack. And this is where Igor really needs to capitalize. Gets that float stone down. Versus Seeker coming down for Alex. Or Igor, sorry.
Drampa?
Yeah. And there's another N. So being able to put Alex down to 4 cards, shutting off abilities, he's being the better lock deck right now.
We're getting another Drampa, or not Drampa, my bad, Garbodor, especially.
Yeah, and there we just see another Righteous Edge. 50 damage to the Glaceon. Rough Seas coming down again. But it's really, if Alex can just get another water energy. Having 3 water on a Glaceon is a lot better against this Drampa than just having the double colorlesses that keep getting knocked off. These are going to be a big 6 cards for Alex here.
Not see that water energy in hand though.
I think I might actually see an Aqua Patch. Not sure. Oh no, there's the water, but he chooses not to attach it to the Glaceon that's active and attaches to the one on the bench.
Interesting.
He might have too many items in his discard to actually tank a hit from a Trash Avalanche. This matchup's been playing out pretty weird. Again, we are working on switching the names to the correct spot. There's a Guzma from Igor bringing up that Glaceon, and yeah, I think we will see
that Trash Avalanche hit for massive damage. Not enough to knock it out, though.
All right, that's interesting. So, Rough Seas healing it down to 100. And Alex has been spreading around his energies. Again, Righteous Edge being such a brutal attack in this matchup with Alex relying on these double colorlesses to get going. And 90-30 onto both Garboders. Setting up a big double knockout next turn if possible as well. Doing a quick item check. So it didn't actually do that much. It was what, 100 damage? 5 items?
It was 5. It was 5, yes.
There's a double colorless on the Drampa. There's a bunch of damage spread all around. That Drampa is now live doing 180 damage with Choice Band. And then there's the fresh Sycamore.
Getting a new hand of 7.
Igor looking for a way to retreat, maybe as well. You can kind of just damage these Glaceons a little bit and then hope to clean up later with this Drampa, but with Rough Seas out, it kind of puts you on a clock.
Right, you definitely need to start knocking things out faster because every turn Alex is going to be healing.
Yeah, and there we see Rough Seas healing both the Glaceons. And he also did not have the ability to Righteous Edge the double colorless off. So there's Guzma. Bring up the Garbodor with 30 on it. Free retreat the Glaceon to the active one again. And we'll see a double knockout on both Garbodors.
This puts Igor into a bit of a sticky situation here. You have your 1 prize attackers that can knock out 2 prize attackers gone now.
And there's the 3rd water energy come down on the bench one too. So 2 Glaceons charged up. And it's swinging back into Alex's favor. Rusty is really coming in clutch for him.
That's the one thing I've noticed with Glaceon decks. You never really know which way it's going to go right away. You always see it like sway back and forth, back and forth. It's a very versatile deck.
It's also one of those decks where you just hope your opponent does not top deck that Sycamore.
Yeah.
And another end coming down for Igor.
It's putting Alex to a very low hand, but thankfully he does have that Oranguru on the bench.
Yeah, but unfortunately for him, it is shut off by Garbotoxin.
Good catch there.
But you have to remember, these are going to be Igor's first prizes he's taken.
Oh my.
But with 70 damage on that Glaceon, it's just enough. to still be able to take a knockout next turn if he has the resources. Flare Grunt getting rid of the double colorless. Rough Seas healing down to 40 damage. And looking at Igor's hand, he has that double colorless. He has what he needs. And this is going to spell disaster for Alex. He has no secondary attacker charged up. And as it's looking, Igor has the tools to take the knockout on this Glaceon GX right now. But you also have to be careful. There's 90 damage on the active. If you attach this double colorless, your opponent only needs a double colorless on the Tapu Lele to take the game.
Right.
So do you just hope your opponent doesn't have it?
At this point, I think that's all he can do.
We could see an end come down here with the Versus Seeker. But, oh, Acerola.
Interesting.
And a Dazzling Machine.
Looks like he's getting a Drampa as well as a Float Stone.
Well, discarding those.
Discarding, yeah, my bad.
And Rescue Stretcher for the Trashlanch Garboater. The question is there enough items in Alex's discard to actually take the knockout? Does he have the Choice Band? Something that can help him boost damage? He does. So I think a couple turns ago it did 120 damage, meaning 6 items in the discard. So with that Choice Band, he would be 1 short unless another item came down from Alex.
But we do see
he
does have 7.
Okay.
There's
and now Alex is like, okay, I got this Tapu Lele, that's it.
things are not looking good at this point.
Yeah, he's ending himself down to 2. Oh, man.
At this point, is there really anything Alex can do?
So he loses to a top deck Guzma by Igor. Versus Seeker, anything like that. He himself, Enhanced Hammer's alright. His only attacker, his only option is to this Tapu Lele. But there's a Chorus for 3 from Igor. Chorus, usually a card you see get
16.
an insane amount of cards, like 16 cards in these Zoroark matchups, but these are 2 decks where you don't really play with a big bench.
Right.
And the Chorus for 3, still looking for that Versus Seeker or Guzma. And there's a Getsus, but no, he had both of them. So, alright, you got 1. I'm still going to do another one. That's game 1. Igor takes it after kind of coming back a little, like kind of just like doing what his deck does of Righteous Edge until you stall for a little bit, and then I'm going to Trash Lance you until I just knock out everything.
It is expanded, so it is an item-heavy format a little bit more than standard right now, which is nice for Trash Lance to see its glory again.
And remember, this is round 3, or round 4. They're 3-0. Table 2 of the tournament right now. And there was actually some other notable matchups as well. You had the, let's see, Jose Marrero versus Isaiah Williams.
Oh, wow.
2 people who did extremely well in the Dallas regionals, which was also expanded. Essentially the same format. Ultra Prism added a few new cards, but you really can't beat a bunch of Zoroark decks. Like, it's going to be the best deck, and it's just going to keep playing itself.
Zoroark TCG, I don't know what you're talking about.
But yeah, it's been interesting to see the different types of decks people have brought, especially this Glaceon Barbacle deck that Alex and all of them from 6 Prizes have been playing.
So going into game 2 here, what does Alex need to do in order to clinch that victory that he was so desperately clawing for?
Yeah, he was a little bit short. Acerola definitely came in clutch for Igor a couple times there, picking up Drampas both times. And It's interesting because the ability lock from Glaceon GX that Alex presents isn't that bad for Igor. You shut off Tapu Lele's, that's pretty much it. So if he can get it turn 1 and Igor has to rely on that Tapu Lele for Bridget start that we saw game 1, then it could actually help Alex a little bit. But
we do see Alex start with that Eevee, which is a great start for the Glaceon decks, allowing him to potentially get that like Glaceon out turn 1.
Yeah, I was talking with another popular player, Frank Pritchik, and he's playing the same deck with Glaceon. He was debating, like, trying to figure out what his opponent was playing, see how he could start the game. But I'm like, Frank, you're playing Eevee, you're playing Glaceon. Your turn 1's going to be the same every single game. And that is Water Energy, Energy Evolution to Glaceon. Do some other stuff, pass.
Exactly. Alex does end up Ultra Balling away 2 cards. It looks like, not quite sure honestly, but he does get the Oranguru. Ends up throwing down.
But does he have the energy?
We'll see.
Computer search, I think that's a Cynthia.
Looked like a Cynthia and a DCE.
No, he got a Cynthia with a computer search.
Okay,
Discarded a Glaceon and a DCE. Which is unfortunate. Like, oh yeah, the evolution's in hand, but no, you actually want the Glaceon in the deck. So it'll be interesting to see if he actually. Oh, it's Sycamore. Cool. Interesting to see if he actually gets the Water Energy.
He does end up getting that Water Energy that you mentioned.
All right, so this is what Alex wants. But let's see. Oh, there's a risk of if there's no Glaceon in the deck, he could just get knocked out by Tapu Lele. So thankfully he had that other Eevee and does have the Glaceon in the deck as well. And now you kind of play this game of chicken. It's like, okay, well, I could bring this up and shut off your Tapu Lele's.
Right.
But since you started Tapu Lele, if you have double colorless, I'm pretty far behind. Especially because the damage just keeps building up. Rough Seas does mitigate it a little bit.
But not
so that's
enough.
why he chooses to go for it. And we see here Ultra Ball from Igor. And unfortunately, it doesn't look like he'll be able to get the Lele Bridget play.
Sadly not. But he does have other options here.
Yeah, get a Drampa. But it'll be interesting to see what the rest of his hand holds. And if he'll be able to have some form of a setup under this Freezing Gaze.
Igor currently checking all of his cards in his deck, probably searching for his prizes, seeing his counts and everything. Debating probably on what he wants since he doesn't get to use his Tapu Lele for that Bridget.
Yeah, doing a quick energy count. Remember, these are essentially 2 like lock decks, stall decks going against each other. They do tend to play the long game. And with the long game, one of the best cards you can search for is Drampa GX.
Drampa not only does it have that wonderful attack, it does have a GX that gets you 10 cards, which is insane.
Yeah, Big Wheel is a pretty big attack, and 10 cards is nothing to laugh at. We do see him play down the Parallel City, but not on the normal side you play down Parallel City for against your opponent. He actually limited himself to 3 bench, just because the red side reduces all water Pokemon's attacks by 20.
Which is honestly pretty good.
Yeah, so Glaceon really only does 70. And there's double colorless Choice Band. And this is what I was saying before. Without the Rough Seas, Glaceon really just loses to Tapu Lele. And being able to drop 90 damage turn 1 on your attacker that you kind of struggle to set up a little bit, it's very disheartening for Alex.
It's not the ideal situation. He does end up evolving his other Eevee manually into a Glaceon, so he will have a backup at least.
Yeah, and there we see the end. But remember, if Alex wants to put any sort of pressure on this turn, he will have to draw a double colorless and commit it to the Glaceon that will get knocked out next turn. So it's this interesting game of cat or mouse. Looking at Igor's hand, a couple Trubbishes, something he doesn't really need right now, especially with that Parallel City limiting his bench.
Alex does end up getting that water energy, allowing him to use energy evolution into another Glaceon, bringing him up to 3. So even if he does lose that one that is active, he still has 2 backups.
Yeah, so we might see him retreat the active one to the fresh one with the Float Stone.
Which we do.
That way you can spread out the damage a little bit. That way if you draw Rough Seas later on in the game, it's very good.
Igor comes back with a good old field blower, getting rid of 2 tools on the field.
Yeah, you actually saw him debate getting rid of his own Parallel City right there. It's really just for trying to bench more stuff. Playing with only 3 bench for the entire game caused by yourself, it's kind of bad. But he values getting rid of the Float Stones more because when you're able to cycle through these Glaceons with a Rough Season play, there's really no stopping it.
Right.
And there we actually see a Sycamore from Alex. Does he get the double colorless he needs?
No, it does not look like he did, but he did end up getting that Rough Seas, which he has played down, allowing him to heal damage from all of his water Pokemon.
Alright, so yeah, this is what he needs. Igor also kind of didn't get rid of the Parallel City just because, yeah, my opponent's going to play Rough Seas anyway, so I'll get rid of both of your Float Stone. Why help you?
Exactly.
There we see the Trash Lance Garboater come down, and there is another energy drive for 70 damage. Granted, it's only 40 damage after the Rough Seas, and 3 water energy come down, and a Cynthia. This is where Alex will try turning the corner. He has that Float Stone on the active to free retreat to the Glaceon on the bench that has 3 energy, and Frost Bullet will start putting in some work, but one thing we have to take note of is how many items he actually has to discard. I believe it's 5.
It is 5.
Alright, retreat to the Glaceon. Frost Bullet, 90 to the active, 30 to the Drampa. And now, does Igor really want to keep attacking? Is he going to try to find like an Acerola maybe? There's the Versus Seeker. And yeah, Acerola picking up that Tapu Lele. This does 2 things. It saves it from being knocked out with all the energy and stuff. You can choose to attach the energy elsewhere. But it also gives you access to the Tapu Lele later on if there's not a Glaceon GX in the active spot.
Right. It's essentially just a great free switch-in for that Drampa as well, allowing him to also play down what looks like another Trubbish.
Yeah, unfortunately though, Righteous Edge not at its full potential here, being, you know, turn 4, turn 5, where Alex has just 3 basic waters on the Glaceon.
Right.
And again, these are 2 very grindy decks. But once one starts to pull ahead, it's really hard for the other one to come back.
Alex does attach a second water energy to the benched Glaceon with no damage, dropping down a Sudowoodo as well.
And yeah, I think Igor big wheeled again, and Alex is like, okay, I have the Versus Seeker for N.
Yeah. 10 cards is just such an advantage that you always pretty much have to end.
Yeah. All right, and so Alex does have the choice to take the knockout here with Polar Spear GX. It could be pretty big. It really depends. But having almost all the damage that Igor did throughout these few turns almost completely gone, you're really not in a rush. Like, what's he going to do, 150 you? All right, I'm going to retreat to this other Glaceon.
Right.
And then start healing this one I just retreated and still take the knockout on Drampa. It kind of forces Igor to overcommit to something that will just be knocked out the next turn. So Igor has a couple options. He does have the option to retreat into Garbodor for a Trash Lance. but that means losing a double colorless. That means having just this liability of this Drampa on the bench. Remember, Frost Bullet does 90 damage to the active, but 30 to the bench as well, reminiscent of the old Night Spear attack. And having a big, heavily damaged GX Pokemon on your bench is just slim pickings for Glaceon.
It's just free 2 prizes eventually.
So there we see the Psychic Energy come down on the Drampa GX. And we will see a Berserk. Unfortunately, it won't be enough to take a knockout. 150 damage.
Right.
He did get the Rough Seas off, though. That's what he wanted to see. I think Alex is down 2 Rough Seas now, but has the third one naturally in his hand. When you run hot, and it's his birthday weekend, so I guess...
It is his birthday today.
Yeah. All right, there is 6 water in play. Something you usually don't see with Glaceon that much, but there
goes the knockout on that Drampa GX.
Yeah. And one thing Frost Bullet has been setting up is these one-hit knockouts on these Garbodor. Remember, 120 HP is nothing when you already have 30 on you.
Exactly.
There is the Teammates from Igor, a card that I haven't really seen playing that much in a lot of the meta, but it's a card that is very good when you play it. We see it a lot in Night March. We see it in this Drampa Garbodor deck. And just being able to trade with these one prize attackers, they knock you out, then you're like, all right, Teammates, get this big attack set up, and then hopefully you just can't respond to it. All right, 2 cards, 120 damage on that active Glaceon, so this will for sure be a knockout thanks to Trash Lanch. Alex has been playing a ton of items this game.
He currently has 6 in his discard.
Muscle Band coming down on the Trubbish. Maybe we'll see a Tool Drop sneak in somehow.
Ooh. Do see that Glaceon get knocked out, bringing up a Glaceon that did have 2 damage, but thanks to Rough Seas, we have seen that damage go back down to 0. DC has been attached to that Glaceon.
Oh, here's the Barbacle.
Oh boy.
No special energies allowed to come down for Igor. Thankfully, he played that one Rainbow Energy before the Pokemon came down. And Igor's also been through a couple Parallel City as well. I'm not sure if he has a counter stadium.
Not sure either. This deck doesn't usually run 4 parallel or anything.
Well, it runs like 3 parallel, maybe
3.
like a blower. That's pretty much it. And there we see the retreat to the Glaceon. Frost Bullet taking the knockout, 30 on the Trubbish. And I believe Alex has 3 prizes left, 2 left. Looks like 3.
Looks like 2 or 3, yeah. Bit hard to tell.
But Trash Lanch, unfortunately for Igor, will not be enough to take the knockout. Barbaracle. Barbaracle? Barbaracle?
Sure, let's go with it. Pick one and commit.
Barbaracle. Barbaracle.
Barbaracle, I like it.
Yeah. With its hand block ability. But remember, if you have a stadium in play, your opponent can't play the stadium for you and then just turn on your ability.
Right.
You need to own the stadium that's in play. But it's definitely an interesting card that they've brought to this tournament, and I'm excited to see how far it takes them because
exactly.
It has so much potential.
It's just bulk of rare.
Yeah, yeah.
No one ever thought this card was ever going to be a thing.
Well, no, they did, but then they're like,
yeah, it's
like,
bad.
You need your stadium in play. There's not really a shell for it, like. And then other people like, what if you ran into like Volcanion or Greninja or something like that? But when the field is this much of one deck, of this much Zoroark, where they're only playing double colorless, then it's a no-brainer to add to this, and it's great to see. All right, there we see the Trash Lanch coming down. Rusty's healing off some damage. And there's honestly not much Igor can really do right now. Like, sure, he has those 2 Trubbish on the bench. That's it.
Right. It's honestly just delaying the inevitable at this point. See a quick search of discard, it looks like there. Yep.
All right,
And there
is
goes
the
the
Frost
knockout.
Bullet for the knockout. Does Igor have a way to take a knockout on this Glaceon? Remember, we haven't seen another water energy come down on the Glaceon on the bench. He might be running a little low. I'm not actually completely sure how many water they play. Usually it's around the 6 or 7 mark. They play like maybe 1 Aqua Patch.
Did see Igor drop the Drampa down, and it looks like he's about to attach a float stone to that little Trubbish. Debating it though.
So he's just put in a really bad position right now where no energy in play and not really having much to do with attackers wise. Does he even have a supporter in his hand? I don't.
Doesn't look like it, but
Okay, he has the Lele, but not being able to use Wonder Tag because of Glaceon GX's ability.
it's detrimental. He needed that.
Yeah, we might see a Tapu Cure to just. Oh no, he already GX. He can't even
did.
Tapu Cure.
No.
No. All right, there is the Frost Bullet coming down 90. Oh, Igor top decks the Float Stone, staying alive just for a little bit longer. There's the Verseeger Guzma. Alex takes the knockout
There we go.
and will go into game 3. And now, to be fair, that turn 1 Glaceon is really what helped Alex. It shut off the Bridget from Igor, and he kind of just had to get set up like a normal deck instead of a deck that has access to Tapu
Right.
Lele and Bridget.
Seems to be the key to success. We saw it last regionals with Andrew Wambolt playing Glaceon as well. It was always when that Glaceon came out turn 1. Just completely stalled out the other opponent.
Yeah, and like I said, I think almost all of the 6 prizes guys are playing Glaceon this tournament.
Yep.
And we'll have to see day 2 if most of them make it in. Kind of pull like how Igor and all them did with the Drampa garb is just, everyone who played the deck made day 2. And just having the perfect meta call.
I have a feeling we'll be seeing this deck around later in the tournament.
Oh yeah. Same with Igor's deck as well. This Drampa deck is able just to control the game so well with so little. Like, you don't really need much. Like, sure, I got an energy and a choice band. That's all I really need. I'll Righteous Edge a couple times. Because essentially what the deck does is discards their double colorless, forces them to play more cards to get more energy in
Right.
play. And when you force your opponent to play more cards and you're playing Garbodor, then you just come in and sweep with these 1 prize attackers for 1 energy later
Right.
on in the game.
It's interesting to see that this deck has actually come back. As I've stated before in past streams, we have seen the fall of Drampa Garb because of Zoroark coming out, but now that they've realized, hey, we can get rid of these special energies with this Drampa, we might not be hitting as much at times with our Trashalanches, but this is still a very viable deck.
Yeah, I'll like 5 hit you, it's fine.
No
Just
worries.
as long as you never attack me.
Right. Do see a Drampa start on Igor's side. He does get that energy as well as 2 Trubbish down.
And who needs Bridget when you just have 2 Trubbish in your hand?
Exactly.
Or, you know it. Ultra Ball, Trubbish.
Close
At
enough.
the Lele.
Doesn't matter as long as you get them on the bench.
Great start, turn 1 for Igor here, having the N. Ending your opponent blind turn 1 has always been such a debated play.
Right.
Just because my luck, knowing my opponent would have everything they need
Exactly.
after I end them, and I end away like just a completely useless hand. It's my biggest fear, but double Float Stone, Rough Seas, Sycamore coming down
Oranguru.
from Alex. Again, he needs that water energy, but
Does not look like he has it. He does have a DC in hand, though that is not very helpful in this situation.
Ultra balling away that Tapu Lele. Man, not hitting that water energy. So, Glaceon, the fact that you shut off your opponent's abilities, it won't really matter. Igor already used his basically one ability he's going to use this game.
Right.
Tapu Lele. But what matters is being able to take a hit. This EV has a float stone. You want it to be a Glaceon because your opponent's going to do like 20 damage. And that's it. But when you can't take a hit and then heal it off with Rough Seas, like he can just knock it out with a Berserk, it's spelling trouble. And
Do you see
thankfully for Alex, it looks like Igor's hand is not that exciting. And there is a big wheel coming down to try to mitigate that.
Do you see that Garbotoxin has been turned on thanks to a Floatstone and a Garbodor?
And there's the water energy being the 8th card for Alex.
Not
Thankfully,
much help.
he had the Glaceon in hand.
Glaceon in hand is very helpful when your ability is shut off.
And then Handshammer is also big. It's a card they play 4 of in this Glaceon deck. Really wanting to hate on these double colorless energies that people are playing. Alright, brand new hand is 6 thanks to Cynthia. Probably a supporter card that will replace a lot of the draw that we have. I was talking about this before to no one when the stream wasn't on, and it's the same card as Professor Oak's new theory.
It's a blast from the past. Absolutely love that card during Heart Gold Soul Silver.
Yeah, and now they just made it better because now it's Cynthia.
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course, Jeremy. Do you see Igor drop that DCE down onto his active Drampa?
Alright, so this is important because with Frost Bullet dealing 30 damage to the bench, it automatically turns on Berserk for Igor.
Yep.
And if you guys watch Dallas at all, Berserk isn't really an attack this deck goes for a lot. You can go for it when it's there. You play 1 Rainbow Energy. That's really your only source of turning it on without your opponent helping you. But you have access to it. Righteous Edge, sure, okay, you can hope your opponent doesn't draw a double colorless, but no, I'd rather just get 150 damage on your guy.
Exactly. It forces Alex to go much more defensive at this point because he has just massive amounts of damage compared to just that 20.
It'll also be interesting to see what Igor really has in his hand to follow up if this Drampa, or when this Drampa does get knocked out. Here we see the Cynthia from Alex. And there's the Rough Seas. Alright, Frost Bullet taking the knockout on the Drampa, putting 30 on the Garbodor.
Igor bringing up that Garbotoxin Garbodor due to the fact that it has a Float Stone. Looking to see what he has in this discard. Does have the VS Seeker, grabs an N.
Alright, so depending on how many items are actually in Alex's discard right now, should be an easy knockout for Trash Lanch.
Looks like it's about 5.
And having the parallel to reduce damage as well saves his Garbodor from getting knocked out with another Frost Bullet. So it really puts pressure on Alex to find a Field Blower or find another Rough Seas.
Does look like he has 8 now. We have updated the count, it seems.
That's a lot of items.
That is a lot of items. And it does get the knockout on that Glaceon, forcing Alex to bring up the Oranguru.
So thankfully for Alex Hill fans, he does have Computer Search in his hand and the Rough Seas getting rid of the Parallel City. So he will be able to find that double colorless, attach it, and play an N as well. putting Igor down to 4 cards. Granted himself down to 4 cards, but he's going to take a knockout on Igor's only attacker at the moment right now.
Yeah, at this point, he just has Garbotoxin, Garbodor, and 2 Trubbish. Once this Trashalan's Garb is gone.
And I think he drew a hand of 3 Energy Floatstone.
Ooh.
Might be what I saw, but there's the Frost Bullet coming down, taking the knockout on Garbodor. 30 damage on the Trubbish. What is your hand, Igor? Oh, it was a Drampa. That's what it was. All right, so this is probably better than just having like the Garbodor Psychic Energy. Being able to Righteous Edge, put 20 after the Rough Seas, but you take out the double colorless, force Alex to find a card that he had a computer search for last turn. You also have access to Berserk next turn as well if you have the double colorless because of the 30 damage on Trubbish as well. And that 20 damage plus the 180 from Berserk does take the knockout on Glaceon. And wow, there's the water energy. No double colorless here from Alex. And really putting in a lot of work in combination with that Garbotoxin from Garbodor. Decks that don't really play Zoroark in this format inherently struggle against a card like N.
Yes.
If you throw that in with Ability Lock and Energy Denial, decks that don't play Zoroark
Spell's pretty much game over for them.
Yeah, it's really N can't find anything. Okay, well I pretty much lose.
Yeah.
Thankfully for Alex, he did find a way for a Sycamore. And now he's retreating, brings up the Rangaroo, kind of just like, alright, hope you don't have Guzma. We do see the double colorless come down for Igor. Does he have the Guzma?
Does not look like
Yeah,
it.
so, oh no.
Oh, wow.
Alex just stripped all the energy on Igor's side of the field in one turn with 2 cards.
Unreal.
Enhanced Hammer, Team Flare Gun, Attach an Energy, Frost Bullet, 90-30. What are you going to do?
If it was me, probably cry.
All right, and there's the 90 on the Drampa. He's deciding where to put the 30. So you can put it on the Trubbish that's already damaged. If Igor doesn't have a Garbodor, it's just a free prize. You can essentially win next turn guaranteed.
Right.
Because there's 3 prizes left. But you can put it on the other Trubbish, just in case Igor actually does get the Garbodor to try and attack.
Honestly, I do think it's the safer play to put it on the other Trubbish at this point. Maybe.
I mean, that's the risk you run. You also kind of force him to evolve this Trubbish as well.
Do see him end up going for the already damaged Trubbish.
So the only way he really gets punished here is if Igor has both Garbodor. But without both Garbodor, then Alex can just take the game.
Igor does end up Sycamoring away the last of his hand in hopes of finding probably those 2 Garbodor right now. Which he does end up finding 1, evolving that heavily damaged Trubbish.
I like how he plays both the different Garbotoxin Garbodors.
The standard one as well as the expanded one.
Yeah. Field Blower getting rid of Rough Seas. But there's the pass. Remember, he's stuck active. And this kind of just delays the inevitable for Igor because another Frost Spear could come in and deal 30 more damage to that Garbodor, meaning next turn, that's a guaranteed prize. But it does also depend on how many items are in Alex's discard. If there's 10, one Trashlands Garbodor could take the knockout and essentially the game. And it looks like time has been called. Igor will be turn 0. But this is kind of interesting. So he has 3 prizes left. He won't be able to Oh no, sorry, Alex's turn 0. It's Alex's turn right
Yes.
now.
Nice catch.
Yeah, so Igor will have 2 turns to try to take 3 prizes. It doesn't happen without a Garbodor.
Exactly.
Alex, on the other hand, he has 2 thoughts in mind. How do I win? How do I not lose? Because with the way the board state is, if you lose right now, like if you basically play in a way to where it gives Igor the opportunity to take the game, and then you kind of wasted this game 3 because you've been so far ahead. You just had that amazing play of Team Flare Grunt and Enhanced Hammer to try to stall out Igor a little bit, and action's all on Igor right now. Does he have that Garbodor? And is there enough items in the discard?
Looking at his
2 cards in hand.
cards in hand.
It is a Versus Seeker, and I think he got Sycamore.
Sycamore.
And we did see him put the 30 on the Trubbish. And that's just him conceding, like, yeah, if, like, I just need to take the knockout on the Garbodor if you get it out. It also kind of plays around Acerola as well as a card. Alright, this is interesting. There is the retreat. He did not get the Garbodor, but because Alex placed the damage on the Trubbish instead, he technically still does not lose, but there is the Versus Seeker Guzma, and Alex Hill will take the round. Man, coming back from down a game,
Yeah.
the power of Glaceon